Hello and good morning. It is Sunday morning. It is January 26th, and today's poem is one I fell in love with a couple of years ago when it was read to me, and it moved me deeply, and I guess that's why I would like to share it with you today. It's by an American poet. He was born in 1941 in San Francisco, and the poet I'm talking about is Robert Hass. And the poem I'd like to read today is called Then Time. It's a bit longer than the ones I read before, but I hope you will enjoy it. In winter, in a small room, a man and a woman have been making love for hours. Exhausted, very busy wringing out each other's bodies, they look at one another suddenly and laugh. "What is this?" he says. "I can't get enough of you." She says, a woman who thinks of herself as not given to cliché. She runs her fingers across his chest, tentative touches, as if she were testing her wonder. He says, "Me too." And she, beginning to be herself again, "You mean you can't get enough of you either?" "I mean," he takes her arms in his hands and shakes them, "where does this come from?" She cocks her head and looks into his face. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes," he says. "Self-hatred," she says. "Longing for God." Kisses him again. "It's not what it is." A wry shrug. "It's where it comes from." Kisses his bruised mouth a second time, a third. Years later, in another city, they're having dinner in a quiet restaurant near a park. Full. Earlier that day, hard rain, leaves brass-coloured and smoky crimson flying everywhere. 20 years older. She's very beautiful, an astringent person she'd become. She said, an obsessive gardener, her daughter's grown. He's trying not to be overwhelmed by love or pity. Because he sees she has no hands. He thinks she must have given them away. He imagines very clearly how she wakes some mornings. He has a vivid memory of her younger self, stirred from sleep, flushed just opening her eyes. To momentary horror, because she can't remember what she did with them, why they were gone, but then remembers, calms herself, so that the day takes on its customary sequence again. She asks him if he thinks about her. "Occasionally," he says, smiling. "And you?" "Not much," she says. "I think it's because we never existed inside time." He studies her long fingers, a pianist's hands, or a gardener's strong, much used, as she fiddles with her wine glass, and he understands vaguely that it must be his hands that are gone. Then he's describing a meeting that he'd sat in all day, chaired by someone they'd felt many years before mutually superior to. "You know the expression, a perfect fool," she'd said. And he has liked her tone of voice so much. She begins a story of the company in Maine she ordered bulbs from, begun by a Polish refugee, married to a French-Canadian separatist from Quebec. It's a story with many surprising turns and a rare chocolate black lily at the end. He's listening, studying her face, still turning over her remark. He decides she thinks more symbolically than he does, and that it seemed to have saved her. For all her fatalism, from certain kinds of pain, she finds herself thinking what a literal man he is. Notices, as if she were recalling it, his pleasure in the menu and the cooking and the architecture of the room. It moves her in the way that earnest limitation can be moving, and she is moved by her attraction to him, also by what he was to her. She sees her own avidity. To live then, and to have lived, might be more accurate. From a distance, the way a driver might see from the road, A startled deer running across an open field in the rain. Wild thing, here and gone. Death made a poignant, or if not death exactly, which she'd come to think of as creatures seething in a compost heap. Then time.